welcome to Too Stupid to Live, a podcast that reviews romance novels $5 and under. I'm your host, Becky Feldman, and I'm sure you weren't expecting a surprise episode, but happy holidays! We are doing 3 episodes this month, and while the temperatures may be getting cooler, this show is only getting hotter. That's right, today is a super special Hot as Hell with TSTL episode. Hot as Hell episodes are special interviews with your favorite and soon to be favorite authors as they discuss their latest releases, their careers, books, and so much more. And I'm so excited about today's guest. We actually reviewed one of her books on the show last year, Sea Creatures Prefer Redheads. And I'm so flattered that she reached out and we had such a great conversation. Author Brianne Gillen is here to talk about her newest book, My Favorite Leopard, which I highly recommend if you like old Hollywood, paranormal magic, and hot guys who are really good with cats. But before we get into this episode, if you're listening just as this episode is published, it's probably Giving Tuesday for you. And I know it can be so overwhelming with so many different organizations asking for donations. But I do want to talk about one organization that is near and dear to my heart. Or my vagina. I don't know. Anyway, this podcast champions sex positivity, as does the romance genre. And as important as podcasts and romance novels are in this respect, I think education is also an essential part of destigmatizing sexual pleasure. Everyone deserves to be informed about what is happening with their own bodies, and we all deserve to advocate for ourselves when it comes to our sexual health. As many of you know, I do have pelvic pain, and one of the organizations that I am honored to volunteer with is Tight Lipped, a national grassroots organization fighting for better care for people with vulvar, vaginal, and pelvic pain. So, if someone experiences pelvic pain, the natural inclination is to go to an OBGYN. But did you know that most OBGYNs do not have any training on treating common symptoms associated with pain conditions such as vulvodynia, endometriosis, or lichen sclerosis? And there are real consequences to this lack of training. Many patients go years struggling in pain and searching for a doctor who can treat them. But luckily, Tight Lipped is here to change that. Their campaign advocates for every OBGYN residency program to teach about these conditions. Whatever you're able to donate, you'll be helping close the gaps in care and gynecological education. If you'd like more information, please check out the donation link in today's show notes or on the episode page at tstlpodcast.com. Okay, enough of me being like a really good person. I know, I'm really great. Let's get on to the show. Please set your heat levels to sizzling. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode where Brianne Gillen gets hot as hell with TSTL. Well, Brianne, welcome to Hot as Hell with TSTL.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I am thrilled.
I am so excited to have you. First and foremost, how are you doing at this present moment?
I'm here. It's great. Yeah.
Same. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's all most of us can ask for. Yeah. I will admit that, did not think ahead when choosing to release a book a week after election day, and all that ended up coming with. So I was like, okay, all right, it's all good. But
yeah,
I will say I am very thrilled to be able to just chat fun things with you today. So this is good. I've been looking forward to this. So
yeah,
it's
like
good.
your My Favorite Leopard which is the book you have out now, was the first post-election book that I read, and it was like the number one. And you were like, is it weird to hear that you were the first? Because like people like
it
you know
is.
what I mean?
It's kind. I will say it's encouraging a little bit, because I've like for several days, like the end of last week, I was like, oh, I have to promote myself. I don't want to promote. What is it? I don't even want to talk about this. But I'm hearing from a couple of people who have read it already and were like, oh, this helped. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, I can do so. Okay. I'm glad. So I'm like, if I can bring you a few laughs right now, I hope I succeeded. If I can let you escape into 1940s Hollywood with some, very sweet, endearing, not the face-eating leopards who people will be surprised when they eat their face. These are just regular, kind leopards. And I will say there is also face-sitting in this book, so it hopefully
which I liked.
that, yeah. So hopefully that
Face-sitting,
will
not
help you get through.
face-eating.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's really all any of us can ask for, I
That should
think. So
just be like the main tagline of just don't
it
worry.
should. I should change all of my marketing
Please.
right now. Yeah.
Well, before I forget, loved that scene. In My
Yay.
Favorite Leopard, that was such a great scene. Um, but also, yeah, just when I was like reading it, it did take me. There was just like these like nice moments of levity that
Good.
a couple hours of levity that just like got me out of like
I am very glad.
the doom and gloom. So thank you.
Yes. Well,
Um,
my pleasure. I
yeah.
am very glad that I was at least able to help in some way.
Yes. Well, first, I want to hear about your career, your love of reading
Okay.
and writing.
Yes.
Basically, what I wrote down as the question is you were born and then what happened? So,
I love it. It's like, where do I start?
yeah. So just go
Um,
from there and make
yeah.
it snappy. No, I'm kidding.
All right. Sounds good. I can do this. Yeah,
Mhm.
I have always loved stories with a happy ending. It's just, and like I know my mom always had romance novels on the shelves. I will say I don't know. I think a lot of them ended up being given away at one time. I am determined that there must still be a box of them in the garage somewhere that I will
Mhm.
unearth one day. But
Mhm.
because some like I think she had some of like the really classic covers, and it was like, I would love to get my hands on them now. But
Mhm.
but I always loved it, and rom-coms have always been so special to me. I love them. But I also loved, like, my mom introduced me to classic movies very early on. So I grew up watching them. So, when I was starting this series set in 1940s Hollywood, I was took so much inspiration from all the classic screwball comedies because they were just the best.
Mhm.
And we can, when we talk about My Favorite Leopard later, we can definitely get more into that. But there was, if you've seen Bringing Up Baby with
Mhm.
Cary Grant and Katharine Hepburn, that was a huge influence on this book in particular.
Yeah.
Um, but I have actually a theater background, and my like sort of day job, I guess, if you will, when I'm not writing,
Mhm.
is I've worked as a costume designer for a while in theater, and I also work in a school setting with teenagers and stuff, and it's great introducing them to theater.
Mhm.
But and I always did a little bit of writing here and there. So, I've done some playwriting in college. I've written some nonfiction stuff about costume design, for like online magazines. But
Mhm.
then, like, I don't know, maybe I can't remember. I don't know what time is anymore since the
No
pandemic,
one
but
does.
it was
Yeah.
it was pre-pandemic by a
Mhm.
few years. I had been in a really bad reading slump. I had just
Mhm.
gotten away from reading pretty much anything, and I got back into it. It was actually, interestingly enough, it was the Outlander series
Mhm.
that reeled me back in. I had seen the previews for the show, and I was like, oh, this looks like this is my cup of tea.
Mhm.
And then a friend of mine was like, oh, you got to read the books first. I was like, okay. And then that sent me down a rabbit hole. But I think it was somebody on an article about Outlander. There was like a related thing of like recommended reads.
Mhm.
And Sarah McLean's Day of the Duchess had just come out. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
let me try that. And then I was back down the rabbit hole. It was great. And she had, I loved her book, but then I also had, like, she has a great recommendations page
Yeah.
on her site. And I was like,
Mhm.
ooh, that looks good. And that looks good. And so my TBR then grew into the ginormous mountain that I will never
Mhm.
conquer, which is great.
Mhm.
So yeah, so then I kind of got back into reading and rediscovering romance, and it just was great. And
Mhm.
then I started writing it myself. So yeah.
So tell me about this decision of, you know what? I'm writing my own now,
Well,
baby. Yeah.
I had this idea that had been kicking around in my head for like forever. It was
Mhm.
ages and ages and ages. And I was like, I had always thought of it as maybe like a visual thing, like either a play or a screenplay, or maybe even a TV show at some point. And I was like, but I'm not really in that medium. I don't know a lot of people. And so it was kicking around as an idea. And then
Mhm.
all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait a minute. I could write this as a book. And I was like, oh, I should try that. So interestingly enough, I started making some notes, doing a little bit of writing, some research, and it was not the book I ended up publishing. That it still has not, the poor idea still has not actually seen the light of day. But yeah, I was started doing the research, started a little bit, and then I was in that mindset, and the idea for my first book, Difficult, came to my came to mind. It kind of just popped into my head, almost like fully formed, and I
Mhm.
was like, oh, I'm gonna write that. Oh yeah, okay. And that one, then of course, was supposed to be a standalone. The lead's best friends popped up and were like, excuse me, write my stories.
Yes.
And then, a series was born, and then a
Mhm.
supernatural spin-off series was born after that. So it snowballed. But yeah, but Difficult kind of came to me. I think it was the height of a lot of the Me Too stuff.
Mhm.
And the I remember listening to a podcast, and somebody was mentioning, all of these great stories that we never got to hear because so many women just were pushed out of Hollywood and gave up. And I was like, oh, yeah. Oh. And then all of a sudden, it was like, ooh, wait a minute. I wonder if I should write a story about a woman in 1940s Hollywood, because I
Mhm.
know, I've always been kind of more inclined toward historical than contemporary in terms
Right.
of what I write. I read all over. But
Mhm.
but then I was like, ooh. And then it would be a lot of my, screwball comedy influences. And then, the idea kind of just came all together, which was great on the one hand, because it happened and it was solid, but then
Mhm.
it was like, probably the easiest a book idea has ever come to me.
Mhm.
So it kind of set me off. And book since was like, oh, this is a little trickier. What do you mean I have to plot,
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so but yeah, but that's sort of that's how it came to be. So
That's awesome because
yeah.
we reviewed Sea Creatures Prefer Redheads on this
Yes,
show.
I was
And I
very honored. Thank you.
I was so excited. I found it just, I think I was at some reading at the Rip Bodice and was just, I was like, what is this? I have to buy, and there you
Yay.
go. The rest is history.
My cover artist did the trick.
Excellent, excellent work,
Yes.
cover artist, and excellent work,
Yes.
you.
Well,
Aaron
thank
and
you.
I bring it up all the time, and I bring it up all the time,
Nice.
and I think that what you were saying about like stories that we've missed, it feels
Mhm.
like I felt it with that book. Kind of, it seems like it was inspired by Millicent Patrick, who
It was,
created.
yeah.
Yeah, and you
Yeah,
were kind
she
of giving
was.
her story a happy ending. That you know what I mean?
Yeah, because it was interesting. I had wanted to try my hand at doing a little supernatural thing, and I was like, ooh, a sea creature might be fun. And I loved Little Mermaid when I was a kid,
Hmm.
and then I think I had heard about Millicent Patrick,
Hmm.
and then and that she was the makeup artist who designed the look of the creature from the Black Lagoon. So like
Hmm.
the entire look of that monster with the gills and all was all her. And of course, in a shocking turn of events,
Hmm.
her male studio boss at the studio, the head of the makeup department, um, decided to take credit. And I guess there's a really interesting biography of her. I think it's called The Lady from the Black Lagoon,
Hmm.
that dives into her story. And I will admit, I didn't read the whole thing until after I finished Sea Creatures, because I didn't want to like accidentally take too much from her own life, because it was like, this is
Sure.
just a very, very, very fictionalized version
Hmm.
of it was very loose inspiration. As far as I know, there were no real life sea creatures that she fell in love with,
Yeah.
that I know of. We don't know.
We don't know. We don't know.
We
We can't.
don't. It's
Yeah.
possible.
Hmm.
Um,
Speculative. Hmm.
yeah, exactly. But she, I think, they sent her on like a press tour, and were like billing her as like, she designed the creature. And then her boss got jealous and yanked her off the tour, and she was lost to history for a while. And it's like, seriously? Like, he's one of the most iconic movie monsters.
Mhm.
And, so of course, so that definitely fed a lot into the uh Opal, who's my makeup
Mhm.
artist in Sea Creatures. It very much fed into her professional story arc, that it
Sure.
was like, he's gonna get what's coming to him, and
Mhm.
she deserves a kind-hearted cinnamon roll sea creature who will help her achieve those goals.
Yes,
Who's,
who just, like,
very
loves her
much.
and is impressed with her and respects her,
Yes,
like, it's just
yes.
so they have such a
I
great
had
relationship, and they
I
do
had fun
come
writing
back.
him.
Yeah, they do come back in, My Favorite Leopard, but
They
it's
do.
yeah, it's interesting in My Favorite Leopard, and I know I'm jumping to the end of the book that you're
All good.
whatever, but I saw a rewriting of a tragic woman's story in this, in that you
Hmm.
mentioned it's kind of inspired not inspired, but like it's like Cat People, which that
Yes.
movie has
Yeah.
such a tragic ending. It's
Oh, it
like your
really does.
classic poor woman, just her life gets worse and worse and then she dies.
ev- every man in her life is just terrible, and even some of the women
Mhm.
in her life too. It's like,
They're
oh
all
my
bad.
god, yeah. So I was like,
Mhm.
okay, well, let's just take like the leopard shifter, or the
Mhm.
large cat, because I don't think she's a leopard in Cat
Yeah, I
People.
forget
I
what
don't
she's
know,
supposed
maybe
yeah, it
like
was
a
like a
panther or
panther?
something. I
Yeah.
don't know,
Mhm.
something
Mhm.
something noirish and,
Yeah.
dark seeming. um but yeah, but they so I was like, let's just take that, and most of the rest of it is more like the comedy bringing up Baby, where it's like if
Mhm.
Katharine Hepburn and Baby the leopard were actually one and the same,
Mhm. Mhm.
and so like I was like, let's lean into the comedy of this, because
Yes.
I feel like that's one thing I like to do with all my books, because the same, even with my first book, Difficult,
Mhm.
like she definitely also has a lot of um there's a lot of smash the patriarchy
Mhm.
theme going through that, and you actually meet Lois Ashford, who's the head of the studio in
Mhm.
Sea Creatures and
Mhm.
My Favorite Leopard. She's the heroine of Difficult,
Oh, okay. Mhm.
and so you get to see what leads up to her,
Mhm.
basically. Like, mild spoiler, but if you start with the novellas, she's at the head of the studio.
Right.
So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
she does
Mhm.
not start out that way, but it was another thing where it was like I kind of started with her getting her professional HEA, and
Mhm.
then her romantic one as well. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I like to kind of take these, technically what were serious crappy circumstances for a lot of people at the time, and we're still dealing with it
Mhm.
now, um and give it, a lighthearted spin, a hopeful spin. I hope,
Mhm.
like seeing these people get some good stuff going in their lives. A big theme of also Difficult is, her kind of remembering how to laugh again
Yeah.
and take
Mhm.
things, find the joy in things, and her love interest, Nick, who you actually meet in My Favorite Leopard. He's the
Mhm.
the producer of the film. He's Lois's love interest, and
Mhm.
I really wanted to just give her a guy who was completely non-toxic at all,
Yeah.
just all in, super supportive, gets her, makes her laugh, and
Mhm.
then helps. I like seeing people help, find their joy again,
Yes.
because,
Yes. Yeah.
it's important. And I'm
Mhm.
sort of like needing to remind myself of that right now, currently. So I'm
Absolutely.
hoping I can, channel my characters more going
Mhm.
forward.
Yeah.
So,
Was it like kind of very like because like when I read your books
mhm,
and I see these like historical characters get or even historical fictional characters get
mhm.
their happily ever afters, I find it such like a gutsy and like feminist kind of move. And so I want to know like is that purposeful? I mean, as
Yeah,
how I interpret it, is it purposeful for you?
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's something that you know, I believe in and live. My life is like, of course we're supposed to have all the opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
and so I definitely tried to kind of create these women who are strong and unapologetic, and what I kind of like doing also is playing with the fact that when people think of the old movies, they were all under the Hays production code, which
Mhm.
was, you couldn't curse, you couldn't imply anything sexual. It was they were all very tame and restricted and everything. But, and so people think that, well, oh, the whole time period was sanitized. It was like,
Right.
no, no, it wasn't. I mean, like, just even like just the blooper reels that, like, there are some on YouTube of the classic film stars, and it's, people
Mhm.
like Olivia de Havilland and Jimmy Stewart, cursing and stuff, and it's fantastic. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yes, okay, they did curse. This is good.
Mhm.
um
Mhm.
but I think one of the best compliments I ever got was from one of my critique partners, who said that my stories sounded like, particularly the dialogue, but they sounded like a classic Hollywood movie, but with, if they were allowed to curse and
Yeah.
have sex and all of that
Mhm.
kind of stuff on page. And I was like, yes, yes, goal. That was the goal, without even realizing it, because these people we're all human, we're all dealing with stuff. And I
Mhm.
really like being able to write these people who maybe, I don't always set out to have them breaking convention, but when they do, I like to see them pushing back against the system, and then giving them, supportive partners in their lives who are all in and
Yeah.
ready to be like, yes, let's do this.
Yeah.
We're a team
Mhm.
now. So yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it is intentional, but then it's also sort of just the kind of stories I like to see and the characters I like to see in
Mhm.
everything. So I'm like, well, of course I'm going to write those same kind of people.
Right. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. And it just like kind of reminds you, oh, they were human, because like what you were saying kind of reminded me. I was watching this like one documentary about, or like on something on the History Channel, about like
mhm.
how someone unearthed like ancient Egyptian porn, and it was like
I love it.
so insane. But it's like kind of remind, yeah, back then they were humans, kind of just.
Yeah,
And even like kind of reading this, as fictional as it is, it does kind of make you remember like there's a human side to our history and what we've watched and
yeah.
things that were made.
Yeah, and I mean, there have been, scandal sheets and gossip rags
Hmm.
since the beginning of time, practically. Like, people
Hmm.
are always gossiping about stuff. And
Yeah.
it definitely went back, I mean, all the scandals that happened in old Hollywood, some of them got swept under the rug and you couldn't
Sure.
really talk about it, but enough of them were like, oh, they were doing all kinds of scandalous stuff. And like, oh, they got a divorce because why? Oh, that's interesting.
Hmm.
So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's like, it seems like you have a lot of like ammunition for future stories in there. My
Mhm.
question for you is, are they in the works?
They might be. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
kind
Hmm.
of I definitely have one more Hollywood set story in my
Cool.
head.
Hmm.
There's going to be I'm working on I haven't officially started like putting pen to paper yet, but I've got it kind of
Hmm.
it's working out in my head.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
I'm hoping to start it by the end of the year. So like my motivation will come back.
Sure.
But it's gonna be, I don't know if you remember from Sea Creatures,
Hmm.
Aaron's co-star and Opal's friend Yvette. No,
Okay.
not Adrian's co-star. Her name is Yvette
Yeah.
Aaron. My
Hmm.
my own character names are mixing up in my head.
Hmm.
But she was the Scream Queen who co-starred with Adrian in. So she is going to. I have one in the works where she's, as part of a divorce settlement, she will be inheriting a rundown house of some kind that comes with an occupant who may
Oh,
be a
I'm so
ghost.
excited. I am
Yeah.
so I'm sorry, I cut
So
you
it
off.
will
I
be.
got so excited.
No, it's all
Like,
good.
yes.
So
Because
we
I
will
just
have the.
finished Phantasma and I'm all
Oh,
about ghosts
nice.
now.
Yeah. So
Ghosts, ghosts,
she's
ghosts.
definitely, it'll be the Scream Queen and the Ghost, and
Oh,
yeah.
this is
So
gonna be
that's
good.
sort of that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Oh, that
In
is
my
so
head.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that one's going to be a Hollywood set one, but then I also I'm planning to start a new series that's set in the same time period, technically in the same world.
Hmm.
But this one will be moving a little bit away from Hollywood specifically, and I'm working on. She's gonna the heroine of the first book will be like the head of a department store chain,
Ooh,
and
okay.
then he's going to be like the childhood sweetheart who got away
Aw,
kind of situation. So yeah, so that's one
cute.
that I'm definitely also working on. I had planned to start writing that first, but then My Favorite Leopard came into my
Yeah,
head and was like, oh no,
it
no, no,
leapt
no,
in.
this, yeah, this one, it's like, you got to write this first. It's like, okay,
Right.
my characters just
Mhm.
sometimes jump in. I'm like, okay, I'm going to follow that thread and see where it goes.
That's
So
smart because I think like this day and age, like people are you always think, oh, I need to do what everyone else is expecting me to do, and
yeah,
when you're just following your own instincts, like good things can happen too.
yeah. And I
Mhm.
definitely feel like, I'm a person who, I kind of, if I'm pushing myself, I tend to hit some more walls. So that's why I'm
Mhm.
starting to maybe try to work on a couple things at once now to kind of,
Mhm.
if one thing is inspiring me one week, then I will focus on that. And then, yeah. So
That's
kind
great.
of following the muse, I guess.
I love it. Well, speaking of muse, I this is a
Mhm.
weird question, and I don't know if anyone's ever asked you this, but do you use kind of the same kind of thought process you use with costume design as you do with writing?
That's an interesting question. Nobody has asked me that
Oh,
before, but
okay.
it's
No,
but
it's like
it's a good one. In a way, yes. I mean, costume design's a little different only because like somebody else has come up with the story, and so
right.
I basically just have to like interpret their characters and their story and create the visuals to go with. Okay, this is who this character is based on what they're wearing.
Mhm.
Um, but I do have enough of a theater background. Like I've done other stuff in theater too, so that like it's all still storytelling.
Mhm.
And so this, I think my theater background almost more than specifically costume influences me when I'm writing because for sure, like my first drafts, you can kind of tell that I have like a playwriting theater bent
Mhm.
because there's very little like description of anything. I always have to
Right.
like force myself to remember to put in like what does the room look like? What are they wearing? I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
right. It's just all dialogue. So in a way, like that's a little tricky when I'm actually drafting.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's all storytelling. And
Right.
so I'm used to finding different ways to tell a story. And so yeah, I think if that makes sense. And
Absolutely.
I think I
Yeah.
definitely too, like I do love the scenes where I get to describe what people are wearing because
Yeah.
that's part of why I chose the 1940s was because the clothes were just so gorgeous. And so I
Mhm.
really, but one thing that's funny though is every once in a while I'll be describing what somebody's wearing and then have to remember like, oh wait, we're in the POV of, you know, the guy who's the baker and would have
Mhm.
no knowledge of what any clothing stuff was called.
Right. Mhm.
He's just describing like, "Ooh, she looks pretty." Like I have to
Mhm.
kind of find that line of like wanting to really describe the outfit, but remembering that the character whose head we're in might not know the technical terms. So,
Right. Yeah. It's so interesting because, like, back, like, during those, when I think of those movies and I think of kind of the lead women and how much, like, in the, in the beginning credits, you'll see who the fashion designer was, and it's like some of
yeah.
these famous names, and so it just
Hmm.
feels like it played the fashion in and of itself at the time played just as an important role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and on the one hand, like, the at least the guys have written who have been in the business,
Hmm.
like I have Nick was an actor and then
Right.
producer, and then my second book, Single Indemnity, he's a screenwriter. So
Hmm.
I could kind of like at least like writing a screenwriter was fun because he at least in his head was always thinking of like, oh, she looks like this and this and this, and
Hmm.
and then would be catching himself like, what is wrong with you, you
Yeah.
know. And but it's interesting. It's definitely interesting character work because I have to think through like, okay, who would know like specific stuff and who would just be like, well, this style is it
Right.
looks kind of like this, and
Hmm.
so
Yeah. So who do you think, like, what kind of column do you think Tony would fall into in My Favorite Leopard?
I think Tony probably would be in the column of, I have no idea what that's called, but she's looking gorgeous
Mhm.
in it. Because he's very much he also very much gets in his own head.
Yes.
He's an anxious little sweetheart.
Mhm.
And he worries about everything, but he's also very focused on his animals. And
Mhm.
so, because he runs, if you haven't read it yet, he runs an animal sanctuary, which is sort of a little bit of a new concept at that time period.
Right.
But I kind of,
Mhm.
I think there were more of them that came out like later in the
Mhm.
20th century. But I kind of put him as a bit of a pioneer.
Yeah,
But he's
yeah. It was,
very,
yeah. Mhm.
yeah, but he's good at what he does, but he's very much focused on like animals. That's my thing.
Right. Yeah. It was so interesting reading it too after, I don't know if you watched when Chimp Crazy came out, about
Oh
how just like how
yeah.
animals,
Yes.
it is, and kind of seeing again, like again, I'm like putting these connections in my brain of like you're rewriting Hollywood animal history too. You're giving the
Right.
animals a happy ending,
Right? I know. Well, that's the thing too. I was like, okay, well, I knew he was gonna have the one leopard, the main leopard,
Mhm.
Betty, and then it's like, okay, he rescued her, and then it started out where I was basically just trying to think of like, okay, what screwball antics can I throw on here? And I was like, well, in bringing up baby, there ends up being two leopards that
Right.
they have to keep track of, and they mix up and everything, and it's
Mhm.
antics ensue. And I was like, well, okay, so what if I have two leopards, but then I also have Lena who shifts into a leopard. So I was like, ooh, I could
Mhm.
have three leopards on page at one point. Yes. So
Right.
that was sort of where it started. And then, after a little bit, I was like, oh, but I can't not have Betty get a happy ending with her
Of
leopard fella,
course.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I will say though, I did research and Tony was not entirely wrong
Mhm.
because in the wild, they definitely do not mate for life at
Okay.
all. Like
Mhm.
they're just like it's one
Animals.
and done and they
Yeah.
move on and it's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Uh, and it was funny too because the PBS just had some like big cats series this fall and
Mhm.
I had already finished writing, but it was funny because I was watching it and like the male leopards were so territorial and like would
Mhm.
be like trying to kill cubs of another leopard. I was like, oh, this is harsh. This is terrible. I was like, Bob would never.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah,
'Cause,
but I
like, you
figured
have
like
your
in cat
yeah, you have your, like, humans in romances, and you have your animals in romances.
exactly like they have to work out okay, but I figured
Mhm.
like, well, they're both raised in captivity, so we're gonna
Mhm.
fudge it. They're getting their AGA, and plus like it's a book where there's magic, so it's like
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Like, do
take
we
that license.
really? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It was, and again, it was just, like, refreshing, to read because you do think, I don't know, I was watching, what's that? Is it that circus movie with Joan Crawford?
Oh
What's it
yeah, I know
called?
which one you mean.
Berserk or
Yeah, there's
something.
something.
I was watching it recently, or not recently, but like in the last couple of years, and it was like one of the first movies I watched where I was like, "Oh, did old Hollywood take care of those animals?" You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
kind of like was
Uh-huh.
the ooh. So
And I think a lot of times they didn't, which was
right,
not
yeah.
great. And I did read though, I had seen a little something um that when they were making Bringing Up Baby, that
Hmm.
actually the leopard, like Cary Grant was apparently like really freaked out by the leopard
Right.
and didn't want to do a lot. Like he insisted on the glass between them, and
Hmm.
apparently Katharine Hepburn and the leopard like really bonded,
Right.
and they told her like. I guess the leopard liked her perfume, so she would wear the perfume. I mean, so it's like, okay.
Oh,
So sometimes it did work out okay, and sometimes it
yeah.
didn't. So, but that's what I was like, okay, I want Tony to be an ethical guy,
Yeah.
obviously,
Hmm.
and then we
Hmm.
have some shady circus owners who
Right.
come in and they're not so okay. But
Hmm.
even at that, I was like, but I don't want it to be like really dangerous. Like
No,
they take
no,
good care
yeah.
of the animals. They're just creeps on a lot of other levels. So
Yeah, they're just like your villains.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
Like, because I mean, there are plenty of suspenseful and darker. stories, and people do awesome, wonderful things with them. And but
Mhm.
my bit when I'm writing is really like, well, I just want to keep this a comedy and
Yeah.
fun, and just,
Mhm.
like, maybe it's not as hard hitting, but it's gonna make you laugh a little bit. So that's sort of
Right,
like where,
yeah.
because that's what, like, my head just doesn't go to dark places when I'm writing. So,
Mhm. That's good,
you know,
and as a reader, that's what
yeah,
we need right now,
right.
and because I think in general, especially now, it's hard to as like, in life to not go to those dark places, and so
Yeah.
I think that's the importance of, like, the books that you're writing and romance writ large, that they're just right now, they're kind of becoming, like, these, like, tethers that are keeping us from, like, drowning too far into,
Uh-huh. Exactly. It's like, okay, we have to remember to hope a little bit here. And
Yeah, they're
yes.
holding us up. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
The character of Lena, I absolutely love, and her
Good.
journey kind of goes into this theme of, you know, acting on your emotions, having
Mm-hmm.
no inhibitions, and she kind of goes through this journey of, like, trusting your instincts and not really thinking things through. But
Right.
um, can you tell me about how you formulated her character?
Well, I kind of wanted to be, I didn't want her to be as, like, zany and over the top as a lot of the screwball heroines from these movies. But
Hmm.
I also, like, I wanted her to be kind of have the dark and mysterious thing, because she acts in film noir a lot. So she's
Hmm.
got this image of, you know, I envisioned her sort of like a brunette Lauren Bacall, where
Hmm.
she's very, dark and mysterious and a little bit saucy. And but I also wanted to give her a lighthearted side, because I thought that, I wanted them to balance each other out a
Right.
little bit. But also because, I mean, she's got this weird dark secret, and
Hmm.
in that she's a leopard shifter. Um, and she comes from a line of shifters,
Hmm.
and where she actually had, I wanted to play around with, like, she actually had the choice to
Hmm.
leave the life behind, and she does make that choice, but it wasn't like, it was rebellious, but only to a certain extent, because
Hmm. Hmm.
I was curious to explore the side of, like, well, she knew that life wasn't for her, and she doesn't regret it, but she also has some insecurities about, like, well, were they glad to see me go because I was a
Hmm.
little bit of a loose cannon, or, you know like, I wanted her to be a little bit of everything in a way, like,
Yeah.
she's not,
Hmm.
I wanted her to be complex and not all one thing or another.
Right.
And so that when she gets to the point where she can be herself with Tony, and, I mean, it's not really a spoiler alert. He does
Mhm.
find out at some point that she is a leopard shifter.
Mhm.
And then I wanted her to sort of explore, well, I like this side of myself that I can have in a small amount with him.
Mhm.
That because her magic responds to him a little bit also. There's a little hint of, you know, a little bit of, like, it's not quite as fated mates as Opal and Adrian and Sea Creatures, but
Right. Mhm.
there is a response. And so I wanted her to kind of to be exploring the all or nothing. She always thought it had to be all or nothing. And so she's got this huge part of herself that is a part of herself. And so I wanted to have her kind of working through that a little bit, to some extent, that, she definitely loves the life she has, but Tony and the animals he has kind of show her that, like, oh, well, maybe I don't have to completely abandon that. I don't
Mhm.
have to go into, like, a full on saving animals all the time 24/7, but,
Right.
I think a lot of us go through, like, well, what do we, like, are there parts of our past we want to completely get rid of? Do we,
Mhm.
but, like, they're still part of us, so what do we do with that? And so that was sort of why I made her a little more complicated and nuanced. And, and like I said, I didn't want her to be one note
Right.
and only one thing, and it was interesting and a little tricky, because she's the second actress that I've written. And I
Mhm.
definitely also wanted to make her very distinct from Lois,
Right.
who is the heroine in Difficult. She had a very specific set of, you know, fighting against people's perception of her
Mm-hmm.
for her whole
Mm-hmm.
career. Because in that one, she's, as you may have guessed from the title, she's labeled difficult, even
Uh-huh.
though
Mm-hmm.
she is not actually.
Yeah.
But then she also kind of leans into it for a
Mm-hmm.
while. And so it's like, okay, she's known as a diva, but she's also like, you know, sorry, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so I'm a
Oh,
little,
all good. Yeah,
yeah,
you're fine. Yeah.
I'm, I'm a little froggy. But I wanted her to have a different set of, like, she's been more successful in
Mm-hmm.
some ways than Lois. And so, like, her acting career is pretty solid. It's this other part of her that she's maybe wondering if she should dive back into a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
So,
It is very interesting because I think like, moving out to like Los Angeles or even like pursuing anything in like the arts or entertainment, like
mhm.
it feels like there is this past kind of like perspective of you have to devote everything to your passion and you have to
Yeah.
sacrifice literally everything to your passion, but at the same time
Mhm.
you also have to be interesting.
Right.
But you can't stray from the passion. And
Uh-huh.
so like kind of like seeing her kind of go through like, oh, am I doing the right thing after already in that world being successful, it was
Right.
refreshing to read.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. Yeah. And I wanted to explore her too. She does jump in with her heart
Yeah.
first. And she's maybe been like suppressing that side of herself a little bit, but it comes back out when she meets Tony
Mm-hmm.
and his leopard Betty. And
Mm-hmm.
so he very much like leads with his heart too, but in a very different way. So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted them to sort of like be coming to the same conclusion and also like technically coming from the same place, but having wildly different ways of getting there.
Yes.
She just sort of like
Mm-hmm.
leaps first and does this, and he's very like, well, no, I have it, it's got to be this. Oh my God, I've got, I need to do this so I can do that. And then it's this whole process, and he's
Mm-hmm.
very, he worries a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and so, but then they kind of balance each other out because she teaches him to maybe relax a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
then he also teaches her that maybe you can lead with your heart, but like maybe think a few things through too.
Exactly. Yeah. You kind of like realize, oh, neither one is always going to be right at every time, like
Right.
it's like a little bit of both. It's balance. And even
Yeah.
though, as long as it's coming from the right place.
Exactly. Yeah. 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 Because there's this scene where um following when he finds out the truth about her,
Hmm.
that was one that I kind of reworked several times. But one thing that a great piece of feedback I got when I was drafting and redrafting was that they are kind of fighting, but they're both wrong, but they're also both right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Hmm.
people really like the people who read it first really liked that, and I was like, okay, so I have to really make sure that I continue that balance, that like they both kind of have a point, but they
Hmm.
also both didn't handle it the best. And
Right.
how did
Yeah.
they, that's always the tricky part, because I was like, well, I don't want it to be like a super angsty moment
No.
between
Hmm.
them, but at the same time, I wanted it to be enough that like, yeah, no, we've got a few things to work out here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was so pleasant, and it
Oh,
really like
good.
I don't know, it kind of is one of those things like it reminds you from other romances when there is maybe the act 3 breakup or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like they're all coming from the right place. This is all like
Right.
understandable and right, and like we like as different as readers are, they would be making one of those decisions too. And so
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And I really like, I struggled a little bit because originally it was almost like too easy for them, but
Hmm.
then it also like, at the same time I wanted them to actually communicate with each other, and then I ended up, I think, playing with the timing a little bit, so it's sort of almost like they have a dark moment at the end of almost at the end of Act 2, but then
Mhm.
move into Act 3 like as a team, and it's like,
Right.
okay, how do they face this, giant, slightly screwball
Mhm.
catastrophe? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, so we think we're on the same page now. Let's make sure we really are on the same page.
Mhm.
Like we said we trust each other. Do we really? And so I kind of tried to play around more with that than like have the big conflict between them come a little bit earlier, so then we
Mhm.
get to see them actually facing something together. It's like, oh yeah, okay,
Exactly.
they can do this.
Yeah, yeah, the question isn't will they or won't they, the question is how will they,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
it's very fun. It was very fun to
Good.
read.
Yay.
Do you identify more, like, personally at like, with Lena, who is kind of doesn't really, kind of acts before she thinks, or are you more of a Tony who's, like, thinking things over?
I mean, in theory, I'm kind of a little bit of both, but
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, like, I don't overthink as much as Tony, but I
Mm,
think
mhm.
I am definitely more of the, overthinker. So probably a little more Tony than Lena,
Yeah.
um, for
Mhm.
sure. It's like, okay, yeah, he's a little. He kind of goes to first, and then
And then
comes
it's like,
back
"Oh, wait,
down to
everything's
like,
fine." Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah, okay, we got this. But there is that moment
Mhm.
of like, oh no, 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 okay, okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think,
Mhm.
yeah, probably
We're all a
definitely
little bit of both.
a little bit,
Yeah.
yeah. But I
Mhm.
definitely on the spectrum, I think I would lean more towards Tony than than Lena.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, you don't turn into a leopard, there's that.
I
So,
don't. Yeah,
yeah.
no, unless there's some power lurking down in there. But I think it would have manifested by now if I did.
Yeah, if you
So,
could, that's how I
yeah,
feel about most people who can turn into leopard. But
yeah,
actually, you mentioned power and manifesting.
yes,
It seems like it comes from like an ancient, like, Celtic kind of
yes,
coven. So tell me
yeah.
a little bit about that and
I
incorporating that
kind
kind of
of, I
aspect.
mean, I didn't want to do like I didn't want to make it super specific to
Hmm.
anything. I mostly made it up
Right.
specifically for
Sure.
this.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I figured there's so much interesting lore and legends in the Celtic history, and I thought
Hmm.
of, like I do love the idea of, she's kind of Lauren Bacall, but she's got a little bit of Maureen O'Hara in her too. That
Hmm.
like she's
Hmm.
suppressed her accent, but she's originally from Ireland, and so I really wanted to just play around with. Okay, well, there's a little bit of the like there could be some goddesses, and I definitely wanted it to be something that was more of a mostly women based, and not
Hmm. Yeah.
necessarily all,
Hmm.
but like she references goddesses a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and so I just figured like, okay, well, and originally I toyed with, well, should it be just cats or should it be all animals? And I was like, no, I think I want to keep it, just cats.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and so I really just worked on coming up with a world that made sense within these walls of this world where
Hmm.
like they have the choices. I didn't want it to be overly restrictive, but they've got the freedom to kind of pick what big cat they turn into,
Hmm.
and then which, like, if they choose to go into the life where they are standing by always, on call to help the cats in need and
Hmm.
things like that. So based a little bit in like grounded in a bit of reality of like the same kind of work that Tony would do as a
Hmm.
human, they've just been able to do because they have some magic. And then I was, a lot of the magic just came from practical plot reasons.
Of
Like the fact
course.
that she
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
she could maybe glamour some things a little bit like vampires can do because,
Hmm.
well, she's got to hide a leopard at one point, and I was like, how could she hide? Well, she could just magic him away,
Yeah. It's really,
So
that's like the world's your oyster when it comes to this.
right, right.
Mhm.
Well, no, actually, it's Adrian had the oysters and the
That's
the sea
true.
stuff. So yeah, this
Fair.
this world, no oyster.
Is your raw meat? I don't know.
I may be, yeah, I know, could be.
I
you're
did love
raw
the scene
filet
when he brings
mignon.
her the meat. Was very,
I,
very funny.
I had fun with that. I wanted to, originally I had him bring something like really boring, like just flowers or chocolate, and I was like,
Hmm.
no, he needs to just have it be something utterly ridiculous and
Yeah.
wrong, like coming from the best possible place because he's got a big heart, but also like, wow, you brought her what now? So yeah.
Mhm. It's
Yeah.
such a memorable scene, and I was like,
Good.
it was fun. It was very, very fun to read, and I'm so glad it was fun for you to write. I want to
It
ask you, like,
was.
were there any challenges that you like kind of faced that you didn't expect to be facing when you were writing this book?
A little bit. I mean, I do sometimes get caught up lengthwise. Like
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be like a long-winded writer sometimes in my first drafts. And this one I knew I wanted to keep it, novella length. And it's a little bit longer than Sea Creatures was.
Yeah.
But I definitely like I found myself getting towards the end. I was like, oh, but I need to flesh this part out. And I was like, oh, but I'm, meeting up with my word count deadline that but then the one good thing was, being indie self-published, I didn't have a restriction on, when in the end, what it came down to was like, oh, but wait a minute. If I go over my word count that I set, it's okay because I said it, which was
Right.
great. It's
Mm-hmm.
sort of the perks of being an indie author. But yeah, and I think there were also like I think that's always my a little bit of my bent is that I tend to shy away from super angsty.
Yeah.
And so there are times when I definitely was underplaying some of the conflict and that's always my thing is like I want to keep a good balance of enough conflict that it's interesting and not just they did this and then they did that
Right.
and now it's
Yeah.
done, and but I'm not a super angsty author like Sarah McLean can like rip your heart out
Yes.
and then
Yeah.
stitch
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
back together and it's
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. But I definitely wanted to that is something that I tend to struggle with a lot. But I did kind of try to find the balance of that with this book too. It was like, okay, I think maybe there were a few moments where it was like, oh, this is too easy for them. And
Mm-hmm.
then I had
Mm-hmm.
to kind of like push them. It's like, I love them. I don't want to push them, but
Right.
I have
Yeah.
to push them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
It's
so
so interesting because it feels so relative, that something that may be low angst for someone could be high angst for someone else.
yeah,
Someone who's like reading something low angst is like that's described that way, and they're like, well, where is the angst? It's so it must
exactly.
be, yeah.
Yeah, and it is definitely subjective, and I think that's the one thing that I kind of have to get out of my head sometimes is like,
Hmm.
okay, write write the story that I want to write, and then I can always tweak it and tailor it, but not. I try not to write to what I'm seeing, like, oh, I've seen this discourse go around on social media of like people are debating, like, well, should it be this or should it be that? I'm like, no, focus, shut that out, focus on other stuff, you know,
Hmm.
and then find the balance.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
It
always
seems
tricky.
like social media is, like, as each hour goes by, plays a more and more important role in
Yeah,
indie authors particularly. I mean, I
yeah.
imagine traditional publishing as well, but it just yeah, I mean, there's this huge phenomenon. I want to know, like, how has it been for you?
It's been interesting. It's always rough because you have to market yourself. And there
Hmm.
is a balance of like, well, you don't want to insert yourself into reader spaces because that is for them and once it's written, like that's it.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's theirs. And but then at the same time, I think romance in particular is tricky because so many of us are readers as well as writers.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I've gotten so many great recommendations from reviewers, books that I never would not have been on my radar. And it's
Hmm.
like, oh my God, this is my new favorite author.
Hmm.
And so it's tricky because you don't want to like jump in, but you also want to listen a little bit,
Yeah.
and enough that you can market yourself, but not be, the person of the day on,
Right. Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
social
Mhm.
media, which is
Mhm.
always, I mean, knock on wood, I have never been that yet. So,
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah. Because
but
it just
it's,
feels like, oh, like with the popularity of book talk and being one of those
yeah.
viral books on TikTok, like the pressure, you must feel a set of a sort of pressure that maybe was unexpected.
Yeah, and I'm not, I haven't joined TikTok yet. I know,
Hmm.
like some authors are like, you have to be on TikTok. And I'm like, but I'm not really a video
Right.
person. So, like Instagram's my sweet spot.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also like it is tricky because you have to, like, you want to put yourself out there and get noticed, but you also, like, I mean, maybe some authors do want to go, super viral. I don't necessarily need that. I would
Right.
just, like, just I just want people to buy and read a fair amount of my books. It's fine, but
Love that. I love that
yeah,
marketing.
just
Buy
like,
and read a fair amount.
yes, like, read enough that I can, earn back some stuff. But,
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
don't want to be the level where it's like, oh, my notifications are blowing up,
Right. Yeah.
so
Mhm. Mhm.
it's tricky. But, I mean, you do at the same time, like, I sometimes you worry, it's like that you feel invisible. Like, I think
Mhm.
all of us do. We have days when it's like, okay, I thought that marketing thing was going to hit, and it just
Right.
absolutely did not. It's like, okay, so what do I need
Yeah.
to do different? And
Mhm.
it's always a balancing act. And I think, I mean, most of us would rather just sit and write and just be
Yeah.
like, here's by magic, here's the book in your hands. But
And just the people just
um
come,
yeah,
yeah.
it's like we have to now be business people at the same time. It's like, oh, that's frightening. But
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
it really is just, I think, nice to be part of the conversation at least,
Mhm.
in a way. And that's, I think maybe things had gotten pretty toxic for a while, and I mean,
Sure.
there still are in a lot of ways, but
Mhm.
it feels almost like maybe there's some newfound community happening again
Yeah.
now all of a sudden, with some like new options opening up, and it's like,
Mhm.
okay, let's this is good, we'll just get back to talking, and then, I can inject in there, oh, by the way, I wrote a book,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Um, is there any particular author or book that you're reading right now that's just been getting you very excited lately?
Oh. Well, actually, funny enough, the book that I just finished is technically not a romance,
Okay.
but
Well,
it is. I'm going to make
I'll
the
allow
argument
for
that
it.
it is.
Okay.
I just finished listening to the audiobook of Ina Garten's new memoir.
I heard it was
She
great.
she is delightful, and the audiobook is great because she
Okay,
narrates it,
great.
and honestly, the amount of time she made me laugh this past week was like, it was perfect. I was,
Oh,
thank you, this is great. But it's
yeah.
also like, I had no idea what an interesting life that she led. But
Mhm.
it's also, I would argue, it is also a romance because so much of it is focused on her relationship with her husband Jeffrey, and
Yeah.
their story is just, like, they had some ups and downs, but
Mhm.
like especially like how they met, and then when they were first married and traveling in Europe, and it was just like they're adorable. So
Yeah.
it was incredibly heartwarming and charming, and I just was like, oh, this was exactly what I needed. And so
Oh,
if you need
good.
a memoir that is also, I would argue, a romance,
Hey, I
you
I
know
I'm sold. Yeah.
yeah, plus she talks about food a lot, and it's just like, okay, great, it's got everything. So that
Yeah.
that definitely has been getting me through this week.
Mhm.
I'm also excited because my library hold on Danica Nava's Truth According to Ember just came in.
Okay.
So I'm
Mhm.
very excited to get started on that. I've heard
Mhm.
really good things about that. I think it's a contemporary rom-com.
Okay. Mhm.
But I think both of the lead characters are Native American, and
Mhm.
and I think it's going to be I've heard great things. So
Oh,
I'm
great.
excited. I'm excited to dive into something.
Yeah.
I think she said it's I think it's got definitely more of a rom-com feel. So like the lighthearted things that will make me smile are
Exactly. It's
all what
exactly
we
what
need
we
right now.
need.
Yeah, seriously. So
So is today the
for sure.
actual pub day of as we were right
It
like
is.
when we're recording right now is your actual pub
Yes,
day?
it
Okay.
is actually. Yes, My Favorite Leopard is officially out in the world
Yes.
today. I know it's again another good thing about publishing indie is you don't have to publish on a Tuesday. Um,
Right.
and I have it's funny because that my first book I released it on a Friday the 13th because
Mhm.
13s are lucky for me.
I think that's
And
great.
so
I'm so
yeah,
happy for you for that.
yeah. So not everybody feels that way, but I was like, you know what, I'm doing it. And then
Mhm.
so since then I have pretty much like I kind of kept up the tradition.
I
They don't
love
always release on a
it.
Friday the 13th, but I always try to
Mhm.
release them on a 13th.
That's
And so
amazing.
yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna keep going with this because it's kind of working, I guess.
Yeah.
So yes, so we are recording this on the 13th, and that is indeed
Yes.
when it came out. So, I mean, I kind
Mhm.
of, like I said earlier, there was a little part of me that wished I had released it either before the election or maybe in a few weeks from now, but it's all good. We're
I
here.
feel like
And
you're one of many people who are like, why did I wait to do this? Or why did I do
right,
this at this
right.
time? Because you're just
Yeah,
like, there's nothing you couldn't have
yeah.
known.
Yeah, no. I was mostly thinking about like my work schedule with my day job, and it's like,
Of
oh yeah, no, this
course.
will be good. This will be a good week to release. And then
Hmm.
last week happened. I was like, oh, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Hmm.
So, but if it can, I've been trying to hold on to like it's lighthearted, it's fun, it's silly.
Hmm.
I tried to lean into the bonkers and the screwball. And so like if it can make you laugh for a little bit and escape for a few hundred pages, then great. You know.
Yeah. Well, it
Yeah.
absolutely did that for me. It was kind
Good.
of it was
Yay.
like, you know, drinking hot chocolate after a cold day. You know what I mean? Like
Excellent.
that's what it felt
Yay.
like,
Oh
when I
good.
was just like
That makes me
turned
happy.
finally turned off CNN and started reading a
Yeah.
book that was fun. Like that which just
Right.
is exactly what it felt like. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh, good. I'm glad. That makes me happy. So,
Oh,
yeah.
good.
And if you could enjoy, Lena and Tony and their antics, and I tried to, make the cats as adorable as possible.
Oh, the
So,
cats. I
yeah.
mean,
If you
yeah.
need an extra incentive, it's not only leopards that are the supporting characters of this book. I did also write a litter of kittens that I
Hmm.
tried to make as chaotic and adorable as possible, and I hope I
Yeah.
achieved that. So,
I
yeah.
did write down because like when you first meet Tony, he's kind of wrangling these kittens, and
Yeah.
I like did
Yeah.
write down this is the horniest thing ever. So I was,
I love it.
so
Yeah.
I'm sold. It's like, oh, she gets like I was
Excellent.
just like, this is really sexy to see like a really hot guy deal with a litter of
With
kittens. Love
feisty
it.
kittens. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah, I channeled all of my because I'm allergic to cats and I have always
Mhm.
loved cats. And so of course it's a bad conundrum. And I've had, friends' cats who try to befriend me because
Mhm.
it's almost like they have a sense, like they know that you're not going to work for their attention. So they
Right.
actually work for yours. I'm like, no, no, I want to pet
Yeah.
you, but I can't.
I
So
know.
yeah, it makes
You know
me
how
sad. But
people
I
say this
channeled
is
all
it,
that.
yeah, it's like, you know how people say like this is my book baby. This could be your book kitty.
It
You
is,
know what I mean?
yeah. I was like,
Yeah.
I can live through Tony, and
Mhm.
he's very, he gets to be the sexy guy petting the little fluffy kitten, and
Yeah.
trying to wrangle them, and yeah,
It's
yeah.
he's our new heartthrob. He's our just like our
I
anxious
good,
kitten
I good.
loving. I'm loving it.
Yeah, and he's a redhead too,
Which
so
great. We need more men. Well, I
we
mean, we need
do.
more men. There are men who are redheads, but like is
Right.
romantic leads. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I feel like they don't get represented all that often in romance that we have the
Yeah.
redheaded guys. So I was like, I'm
Mhm.
gonna write a redheaded guy. And so
Yeah.
yeah,
But
I will admit, he's a little bit Danny Kaye in my head,
mhm.
the classic actor
Okay.
Danny Kaye. But
Mhm.
he also does have a little bit of when I was writing, I was like, oh, I think I'm envisioning him a little bit as that British show Grantchester about
Okay.
it's about the I think they might be onto like their third or fourth hot vicar who solves crimes in this little tiny town. But it's
Nice.
he was the first hot vicar. I forget the actor's name, but he was kind
Mhm.
of like
Okay.
a little
Very
bit of
cool.
him, a little bit of Danny Kaye, but
Mhm.
definitely a redheaded guy. So
Loved it. Well,
yeah,
thank you. On behalf of all the redheads, thank you
yes,
so
yes,
much.
yeah,
Tell us where we can find you. I mean, we were talking about social media and
yeah.
stuff like that, but just tell tell us where we
I
can find you
am
and buy a fair amount of your books. And
Well, thanks. I'm very active on Instagram. My handle is at Books by Brian. And then I'm also just kind of this week, along with everybody else, kind of getting active on Blue Sky a little bit.
okay,
I'm at Books by Brian everywhere.
okay,
Technically, I'm still on Twitter. I still won't call it
we all
X.
are. Yeah.
But
No. Yeah.
I'm moving away from that because it's just a
Hmm.
cesspool. But I'm trying to be I'm trying to be Blue Sky has been kind of fun this week and like
Okay.
pretty good for my morale. So
Hmm.
as of right now, but like Instagram is where I am more often than not. So
Awesome.
but my website is briannegillen.com and all the info is there. So and yeah, so and I've got like I said, I've got the three full-length books that are not paranormal, and
Hmm.
then my two uh, paranormals, The Sea Creatures and My Favorite Leopard, with more on the way. So,
Yay. Well,
yay,
thank you so
ghost!
much for being a guest. This was
Thank
so much fun. It was
you.
so great to talk to you.
It
Yeah, I
was.
loved this.
I love the podcast. Always makes me smile, and I'm thrilled to be here. I'm so excited
Oh,
that
thank
we got a
you.
chance to chat.
I know this
So
was great. Yeah.
yeah, definitely a highlight.
Oh, good. For links to purchase My Favorite Leopard, as well as other books mentioned in this episode, be sure to check out the show notes or the episode page at tstlpodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening to Too Stupid to Live, and I hope you have a ferociously sexy rest of your day.